Jumping right into it, full disclosure, I am a humongous sports fan. I also have covered for some years now this intersection of sports and politics. And what fascinates me is some of the names that were in your book. You had featured the Miami Dolphins were involved. You featured Richard DeVos, the owner, obviously Amway, but the owner of the Orlando Magic. Tom Landry, legendary head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. There's a few others. Rachel Dernhollander, who really, it seems, came to the realization of what was happening a bit later on after the horrendous abuse that occurred with USA Gymnastics. And then this is very niche baseball, but a either strikeout hitter or home run hitter, Adam LaRoche, once wore a tee that said, "Jesus loves me and my guns." Oh, and one other that I accidentally skipped. Former Sac legend, he's still a Green Bay Packer legend, Reggie White, also played with the Philadelphia Eagles. How did sports help this movement?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, you found them all in there. The dolphin story, that one's really funny. Also, Tom Landry, I mean, he maybe made a little cameo here, but was in thick at the kind of origin story of the Christian right, at the religious roundtable with Ronald Reagan. I mean, he was everywhere. I'm actually doing more research on my next book, and he keeps popping up.
Mm.
So, what does sports have to do with Christianity? Um, I mean, you can look at one place to look is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, which was founded in the post-war era and very tightly connected to these conservative evangelical ministries, which were very tightly connected to this political mobilization. And evangelicals love their celebrities, absolutely love their celebrities. And I think there's often been a kind of inferiority complex within evangelicalism and within some strands of Christianity, that they just aren't macho enough, that they aren't cool enough, that they're kind of backward looking. And so sports celebrities in particular were the antidote to that. And if you could have a strong, famous athlete who's also on your side, it just goes to show how cool you all are, and it's seen as just the way to attract more followers into your movement.
Another name that I actually just thought of throughout the book, but I didn't put in my notes, but it seems fairly obvious at this point, is the connection between Dobson's focus on the family and Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow put in a ton of work with Focus on the Family. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, a few years ago, there was a Super Bowl ad that they had as well. So I agree with this, that they are going to, as you illustrated in your book, tap into this sort of angle of what it means to be a man and masculinity. But how is it on the part of the evangelical right to reach these athletes, or are these athletes just open to the partnership?
I mean, it's deliberate strategy, certainly, and for many of the athletes, I think it's kind of genuine relationship. It's folks who have a personal faith and who have been brought into these networks through conversion or recruitment. See it as a way of giving back. They see it as a way of contributing to something good. But there's also, I think, a kind of less innocent framework that you can bring, which is, they are essentially being, willingly recruited
Mm-hmm.
into a right-wing political movement. And I mean, Tebow's a great example. I actually initially had a much longer section in my book. I think he maybe just gets a shout out, but I had a whole section on Tim Tebow. I went to a Tebow event. It was
Oh my.
frantically taking notes, and I mean, just this kind of perfect illustration of a particular variation of Christian manhood that was being celebrated, really from the 90s on. You have the Promise Keepers movement. Reggie White, is involved in that. And then, so the football hero is this really great model of masculinity, but still still respectable version of it, kind of heroic masculine model. which is a little bit different from a more popular one that has come into the fore, which is the warrior masculinity, right? So Tebow is still in some ways kind of the older, kinder, gentler model, if you will, but deeply embedded in the Christian right, focus on the family. James Dobson, 100%, and has enjoys enormous respect on among evangelicals for his charity work and for standing up for his faith.
You said you went to a Tebow event.
I did.
What
Yes.
was the Tebow event? Where was it? And what did you see?
Oh, now you're going to get me in trouble. It was at my own university.
Oh,
I teach at a Christian university at Calvin University here in Michigan. And we had Tim Tebow out for a big, I don't even know what the event was. It was just a Tebow event. Lots of local schools were invited, different sports teams were there from the area, and it was a kind of inspirational talk. And yeah, I sat in the bleachers and watched the whole thing go down. A lot of kind of positive motivational stuff. Things that I think it would be hard on the surface for people to kind of disagree with. He's there and he's talking about teamwork and he's talking about faith and he's talking about he has charities, and I think he works overseas and he works with children with disabilities and so on. So, on the surface, all seemingly very good things. And then also all, tied into this kind of right-wing social and political movement as well.
mm-hmm. There are a lot of other big names that you mentioned in your book. Around Watergate, Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson were involved. Obviously, it goes without saying, John Wayne had politically charged movies, spoke at the RNC. Born on the 4th of July was also a mention in there. How did they, in the same vein with sports, how did they use people in entertainment for their cause?
Yeah, what was important to me, and part of the reason for John Wayne kind of make it into the title, is to show that the Christian right was never completely separate from the secular right. And that is certainly true today. And even though, they would present themselves as, Christian and exclusivist and separatist in certain ways, from its earlier days, you see, the links between the John Birch Society folks, the secular right, Human Events and Journal, those groups, figures like John Wayne, and you see this kind of unity around common values. And in the 60s and 70s, some of those common values were anti-communism and pro-Vietnam War and anti-student protesters, anti-hippie culture, anti-feminism, certainly, and embracing this kind of macho vision of masculinity, red-blooded American manhood. John Wayne just, embodied that on film. And in conservative Christian spaces, you saw a lot of emphasis, James Dobson, right, leading the way on gender difference and seeing men and women as completely opposite. And God filled men with testosterone so that they could become the leaders, the protectors, the providers. And then women are the opposite of that. So they have to be protected, they have to be provided for, and they need to submit to the authority of men. And that was their understanding of like God's social order. And society needed to be founded upon that order in order to be blessed by God. Otherwise, like chaos will ensue. And so, especially over time, when it became clear that feminism wasn't going away and that, the culture was changing over the course of half a century, they increasingly looked back with this kind of nostalgic reverence for figures like John Wayne, what he embodied, and he kind of symbolized a time that was lost, and when a man could really be a man.